Hi guys, it's Mr. Pineda. I'm excited to tell you that I'm back with more animated videos. I'm glad I got to see most of you on the last Zoom meeting. Today, we will be learning about decimal and fraction number lines. Earlier in the year, we went over decimal number lines. When working with decimals, remember, we have the tenths and the hundredths. In this number line, we have the numbers 0, 1, and 2. In between the whole numbers is where we have our decimals. From 0 to 1, we have tenths. And from 1 to 2, we have our mixed numbers, such as 1 and 1/10, 1 and 2/10, and 1 and 3/10, and so on. This week, we are going to use this schema to understand the fraction piece. We have learned already how to write numbers as fractions and decimals. For example, we know that 3/10 is the same as 3/10 when you write it as a fraction, or that 1 and 3/100 is the same as 1 and 3/100 when you write it as a fraction. If you look at this number line, you'll notice the decimal part on the bottom and the fraction part on the top. We can see the way decimals can be written in fraction form. You'll see 1/10, 1/10, 2/10, 2/10, 3/10, 3/10, and so on. If I was to put a point right here and then ask you, what is the location of this point? The answer would be 6/10 as a decimal, or it would be 6/10 as a fraction. If you remember from the notes we took in our spiral about decimal number lines, you'll remember that we could zoom in into the number line to see even smaller decimals. Let's go ahead and zoom in closer. We're going to go ahead and zoom in from 0 to 1/10. Here, you'll notice that from 0 to 1/10, we have hundredths. That's because from 0 to 1 whole, it would take 100 hundredths if we were to count each one. When using tenths and hundredths, remember that we can use 0 the hero. 0 the hero is here to help your brain see decimals better. For example, 1/10 can also be written as 10 hundredths. That's because you have 1/10 and 0 hundredths. So after 9 hundredths, you would have 1/10 or 10 hundredths. Adding that 0 definitely helps your brain see it a little better. So don't confuse 1/100th with 1/10. 1/100th is really saying 0/10 and 1/100th. And 1/10 is really saying 1/10 and no hundredths. It's important to remember that 1/10 is actually bigger than 1/100th. In this number line, you'll see the way we can write fractions and decimals. 1/100th is 1/100th. 2/100ths is 2/100ths. 3/100ths is 3/100ths, and so on. After 10 hundredths, you'll have 11 hundredths, then 12 hundredths, all the way to 2/10. But remember, you can also call it 20 hundredths. Now we will practice with a couple of number lines. Here I have a number line from 0 to 1. I will first count the section in between these two numbers. I notice that there are 10 sections. That means we have tenths. Our first line will be 1/10. We will write it like this as a decimal. To write it as a fraction, you will have to write it like this, 1/10. Then 2/10 or 2/10. Then we have 3/10 or 3/10. Then 4/10 or 4/10. Then 5/10 or 5/10. Then 6/10 or 6/10. Then 7/10 or 7/10. then 8/10 or 8/10, then 9/10 or 9/10, and then you have 1 whole. But it could also be written like this, 10/10. Let's take a look at the next number line, and we're going to be labeling it. First, we notice 10 sections between 1 and 2. So that first line will be 1 and 1/10. Or you can write it like this as a fraction, 1 and 1/10. Then we have 1 and 2/10, or 1 and 2/10, 1 and 3/10, or 1 and 3/10, 1 and 4/10, or 1 and 4/10, 1 and 5/10, or 1 and 5/10, 1 and 6/10, or 1 and 6/10, 1 and 7/10, or 1 and 7/10, 1 and 8/10, or 1 and 8/10, 1 and 9/10, or 1 and 9/10, and finally 2. Now I can see that this is a tenths number line. However, sometimes you will get problems where they put a point right here in between, for example, 1 and 3/10 and 1 and 4/10. We can always zoom in here and notice that between 1 and 3/10 and 1 and 4/10, we have hundredths. Every time we zoom in, we can use 0 to hero to help us. So I know that a little after 1 and 3/10, we could have 1 and 32 hundredths. Let's go to the next number line and label it. So, for example, if my point was here, let's call it point A, then the location of point A would be 2 and 6/10. Awesome. What if we had point B here? What would be the location for this point? Let's zoom in to better see this problem. Don't forget that we can always use 0 to hero when we zoom in. So 2 and 7/10 becomes 2 and 70 hundredths, and 2 and 8/10 becomes 2 and 80 hundredths. So the location of point B would be 2 and 75 hundredths. Very good job. Thank you for watching this video. If you have questions, or if you would like to leave a comment, I will leave the comment sections open, and I will reply to you here. I cannot wait to see your work on Seesaw this week. I'll see you guys on the next video.